I'm honored to introduce Pastor Kyle Earley, who is leading us today with As a Man Thinketh, cultivating a mindset rooted in trust, purpose, and faith. Pastor Kyle Earley is a pillar of the Cleveland community, an influential strategist, pastor, and social entrepreneur whose leadership blends faith, mental health advocacy, and hands-on service. With over 15 years in community organizing, Pastor Earley has built coalitions across Ohio, mentored emerging leaders, and delivered practical solutions for people most impacted by stigma and injustice. Raised in Cleveland, he began his journey as an activist and community organizer and went on to create community programming that has shaped his commitment to prevention, education, and wellness. Since then, he has served as lead pastor of City of God Church, political director for Senator Nina Turner, founder and CEO of It's Not a Moment, It's a Movement, founder of Mentally Mangled, author and creator of the Mentally Mangled curriculum and the journal Dear God, Letters from Mentally Mangled Mind, and served on the Cleveland Community Police Commission. Through It's Not a Moment, It's a Movement, the organization has trained over 100 churches and faith leaders in the area of faith and mental health, serviced over 1,500 youth through its youth empowerment program, and is currently helping 150 expecting mothers through support and resources. We are extremely honored to have Pastor Earley join us for the check-in. And Pastor Earley, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the introduction and thank you for all of the attendees that are on. And I want to say thank you to University Hospital, Cutler Center for Men, and just having me. I appreciate you trusting me with the assignment. And I'm looking forward to our discussion today and any Q&A that may come about in the end. I want to talk today from the foundation and perspective of understanding that today's webinar is really about how we elevate our thinking, how we elevate our thinking. We are always thinking about something. I have learned that you are going to have more conversation with yourself than you will have with anybody else in life. And so what are we thinking? And so one of the foundations that as we jump into this, I want us to think about as a foundation is your life is moving in the direction of your strongest thoughts. Let me say it again. It is on the screen as well. Your life is moving in the direction of your strongest thoughts. Okay. And so when we think about that, if we think about this from a perspective of our thoughts leading us in our everyday life, leading us in our everyday purpose and what we're called to do, then we'll understand that if we can change the way that we think, we can change the way that we live. Okay. And so as we hop into this whole idea as a man thinketh or as an individual thinketh, the phrase is rooted in the idea that the way a person thinks internally will ultimately shape how they live externally. Okay. And so here's the thought cycle. And I'm sure many of you know this, but we want to build on this today. Thoughts shape decisions, decisions shape behaviors, and behaviors shape outcomes. And how thinking shapes our life is just through this cycle. It is your thoughts that influence your decisions, your behaviors, your habits, and ultimately your outcomes. And so if we don't address our thinking, and this is not always a place of thinking negative about yourself either. But if we don't elevate our thinking, then we'll stay stuck in the same life cycle, excuse me, and that will create frustration. And I want to stay right here for a second, because I can attest that sometimes in my life, I have thought that it was a spiritual battle that I was facing or something, that was going wrong on the external. But on the reality was I was frustrated with outcomes in my life based upon my decisions, whether that be professionally or personally. Okay. And so when we talk about this whole cycle, understanding that the beginning of the journey before we get to the outcome starts with our thoughts, then I think then we can start to understand that frustration can be at a minimal level when we start to think things through with a different mindset. So let's look at this whole idea of internal dialogue, okay? Internal dialogue, the conversation within, okay? Whether we realize it or not, all of us are in constant conversations with ourselves. Okay. And what I understand about that is I'm talking to me more than I'm allowing other people to talk to me. And so, what do I have to start doing? I have to start realizing that you don't live life, you live the story. You live the story you tell yourself. Okay. And so, you don't live life, you live the story you tell yourself. An internal dialogue helps us shape our identity. We see ourselves, right? In our internal dialogue, right? Watch this. We interpret situations differently when we have internal dialogue, and it helps us shape how we respond to challenges. So, internal dialogue will shape your identity, your relationships, and your performance. Because in this whole idea of as I think, as a man thinketh, then there has to be some self accountability for the outcomes in our life. Where did we start? What was our first thought when we made that decision? What was our first thought when we went after that dream? Right. And so we become accountable. And the question is not if you're talking to yourself. Here's the real question. The question is, what are you saying to yourself? What are you saying to yourself? What do you tell yourself every day or throughout the week? And here's some common things that we talk about. And this is not based upon income, zip code, or degrees. We have all been in this place where we have internal narratives that are dangerous to us because we say stuff like, I'm not good enough, or I always mess things up, or nothing ever works out for me, or I don't belong here, or we doubt ourselves in different areas of life, or even in blessings that God the Creator gives us. And this becomes a challenge for us because unchallenged thoughts become beliefs. Okay. Unchallenged thoughts become beliefs, and beliefs begin to control your behavior. So internal dialogue becomes so important for us daily to have a conversation with ourselves, but we must have the right conversation with ourselves. All right. It's not that you're talking to yourself, it's what are you really saying to yourself that's shaping your life and shaping your decisions, which leads us to this whole idea of when we have this internal dialogue, truth versus distortion. And I like this here, truth versus distortion. Learning to challenge your thoughts. One of the things that some of my thoughts have been like rooted in fear or shaped by past experiences, or some of my thoughts have been influenced by my trauma. Some of them are built on assumptions rather than facts, right? So we have to learn how to separate truth from distortion, and I want you to ask yourself a powerful question when you have this internal dialogue, and that question is this: is this true? Or is this just how I feel? Is this true? Or is this just how I feel? Because watch this, feelings are real, but they are not always accurate. Feelings are real, but they are not always accurate. We have to develop the discipline to challenge thoughts that don't align with truth. And from a faith perspective, this is where transformation begins, because when we stop agreeing with everything we think, then we become healthier because not every thought deserves your agreement. This becomes so important. And again, when we talk about the truth versus distortion, you can't believe everything you feel. Now, your feelings are valid. Your feelings are valid. I do not want anyone to walk away thinking that they're not valid. But if you are in a place of walking in fear, that could be distortion, right? Your fear is of the unknown. It is to be respected. But don't allow your fear to distort your truth, because you know at some point in your life you have thought about it, you have felt it, and you realize this is my calling. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. These are the areas of my life that I'm supposed to be developing and working on, right? But if I feel like I'm not good enough, am I supposed to adopt that as truth? Knowing that I've gotten here this far in life by believing in myself and the things that I thought I could do, I actually did. So I want us to understand that we have to challenge our thoughts because they're not always accurate. And sometimes they can distort the outcomes in our life and how we view where we're supposed to be going. So as we think, I want us to think about reframing the way that we think. Refrain. I can, if I was able to do a survey, I'm sure there's many of us on this call that in some area of our life, we have thought ourselves out of what we knew we could do. And some people call it overthinking. I just want to say reframe your thinking. All right. All right. So now let's talk about personal responsibility. Personal responsibility and owning your mindset. Okay. We've got to understand this, that in our thinking, right, there is power in taking ownership of our mindset. All right. Because we're not responsible for everything that has happened to us, but we are responsible for how we respond to it. And so this whole ownership of the mindset puts us in this position when we don't, and when we don't, and we drift into a victim mindset, when we don't take personal responsibility for our thinking. We shift into this whole idea of why is this happening to me? And I can't change this and I'm stuck. But when we shift into ownership, the question changes to why, not why is this happening to me, but what can I learn from this? Not why is this happening to me? We'll be stuck forever trying to figure out why this is happening to me. When the best question for internal ownership of our mindset is, what can I learn from this? That shift alone can change how you experience life. One of the things that I have learned is that in my life, when things hit me heavy, I'm no longer complaining about the why. Like, Lord, why is this happening to me? Or sharing with my friends, and they can give me advice and insight, but they don't even have the real answer because some things that we go through, we don't even know how to explain, right? But when I started to think about what I can learn from this, some of my challenges, and I know this may sound crazy, became exciting because I knew I would be empowered on the other end of it. Simply because I took the ownership of my mindset to not be the victim in it, but to be victorious in it. All right. And so when we take personal responsibility, it shifts our life and it changes how we experience life. And this all comes from an elevated way of thinking. All right. So let's talk about cultivating a mindset rooted in truth, purpose, and in faith. Right. Cultivating a mindset rooted in truth, purpose, and faith. Healthy thinking does not just happen by accident, it happens by intention. All right. Training our mind to think differently has to become intentional in what we do. All right. I was talking to my daughter the other day and I said something and I said, I said, Daddy's getting fat. And she said, No, don't say that about yourself, Daddy. Just say you need to be more healthier. Man, it changed my perspective because here it is again. What I thought about, which was me being fat, was not the truth at all. She's right. You just need to eat healthier and be healthier. So it shifts my mindset to understand that I got to be intentional with the way that I think. Now, as I'm about to eat this food or I want this moment for my appetite, is this the best thing for me and my health? It is intentional and it is not accidental. I have to start thinking about myself in a better way. A lot of times, what we have done to ourselves in terms of we talk about self care, but in terms of self hurt, is that we say untrue statements about ourselves and then we adopt them. So this is the other point that I want you to think about. I want you to guard what you consume when it comes to your mind. All right, I want you to guard what you consume. Because if it doesn't happen by accident and it happens intentionally, that means if you don't cultivate your thoughts, your environment will do it for you. That's really good. So you got to guard what you consume. You got to be careful about how you allow people to speak about you in your life. From a faith perspective in the church, I tell people this all the time that if you can't speak faith, don't speak at all. I'm believing better for myself, greater for myself. So I have to watch what I allow my spirit, my mind, and my emotions to consume. And so here's the other part of that. Once I guard what I consume, I have to speak truth over myself consistently. I have to speak truth over myself consistently. All right. So what does this mean? It means replacing negative thoughts with truth-based affirmations. It means guarding what we consume mentally and emotionally. and it requires creating a space for reflection and renewal. Okay. So when we are intentional about this, we are intentional about what we think about, what we speak over ourselves, and what we expose ourselves to, which means that we align our thinking with truth over lies. We align our thinking with purpose over confusion. We align our thinking with faith over fear. And all of this helps us understand that we can give ourselves grace because transformation is not a one-time event, it's a daily process. So as you speak truth over yourself, I want you to give yourself grace, celebrating your small, reminding yourself, again, the thinking, the elevated thinking, reminding yourself of the small victories, taking accountability for the things that you think you failed at, but understanding that you are speaking life over yourself to get better. But I think the biggest portion of this cultivating a healthy mindset is to guard what you consume. That becomes so important, so important. So transformation is not a one-time event. It is a daily process. All right, so let's talk about applying this in everyday life, personally and professionally, right? When we look at this, from our professional life to our personal life. And if I may, I would say that none of us on this call, our personal life is always affected. Our excuse me, professional life is always affected by our personal life, right? So again, it starts with us. So the mindset and purpose, applying this every day, right? Your mind shows up and your mindset, excuse me, shows up in how you handle stress, how you engage with coworkers, how you lead, how you care for others, right? If you're working in the healthcare field or in a high demand field, your mindset becomes even more critical because you're constantly moving and thinking about the things that you have to do around you, and most time it is taking care of other people and not yourself. So this isn't just a personal piece, it is practical. It is something that we live with every day. So how do we do this with professional application? Your mindset affects how you lead and how you serve. Okay. Your mindset affects how you lead and how you serve. And for me as a leader, and those of you who lead or serve in the capacities that you do, you know this that it can be difficult to lead and serve when you need to be led and served as well. And so when your mindset is off because you haven't taken good care of your own mental state or your own emotional state, it will affect how you take care of other people. And watch this, it will also affect how you serve yourself and your family and community. Okay? Because you cannot pour from an unhealthy mind. You cannot pour, not even for yourself, from an unhealthy mind. And so, what we must understand is that taking care of our mind is necessary. It's not selfish. Okay. We talk about selfishness as if it is a bad word. Okay. Sometimes you have to be selfish for yourself. Understanding that, yes, we carry a lot of weight when we serve, when we lead, when we're at work in our different positions. But if I can't pour from an unhealthy mind, that means that I gotta be intentional about taking care of my own mental health, my own emotional health, and the way that I think about myself. One of the things that I have always had a challenge with is I always ask God, why did you call me? And I had to stop doing that because it was a reflection of my thoughts. I thought I was not good enough for what God has birthed me to walk in and the purpose that I've been called to do. And so I had to take time, be intentional, take time for myself. So every year, what I do is I spend time by myself at a lake house. It's quiet. It's nobody around. Nobody knows me. If I go to the local market, nobody's walking up to me and shaking my hand and talking and all of that stuff. I'm able to just be out in a quiet place intentionally, clearing my mind so that I can come back and do better than what I was before I left. All right. And so this becomes intentional again, because you cannot consistently pour into others from a place of mental exhaustion or internal negativity. Let me say that again. You cannot consistently pour into others from a place of mental exhaustion or internal negativity. All right. So let's close out here with a couple thoughts and a couple challenges as we reflect, because also this new mindset comes from a place of renewal and reflection, right? And so as we close, I want to leave you with a few questions to reflect on. Okay. What have I been believing that I need to challenge? And I'm going to say these slow and I'm going to say them a couple times. And if you're writing them down so that way you can get them, okay? As we close, I want us to think about this. What thought have I been believing that I need to challenge? What thought have I been believing that I need to challenge? Number two, what truth do I need to replace it with? Or what truth do I need to embrace? Okay? So what do I need to release? What truth do I need to embrace? And then what kind of mindset do I want to carry moving forward? In other words, what mindset shift will I commit to? This could be in the area of your health, your mind, the way that you think about yourself, certain habits that you need to break based upon the way that you're thinking. What mindset shift will I commit to? Because this isn't something that we just do and say, oh, I'm just going to wake up and think differently. No, this has to be a commitment to the process of change and transformation. Okay. So, what kind of mindset do I want to carry moving forward? Because at the end of the day, the life you experience externally is being shaped internally. The life you experience externally is being shaped internally. And again, this goes back to that accountability piece when we talk about mind elevation. All right. So if you want to change your life or adjust your life or elevate your life, it's going to start every time by challenging and changing the way that you think. There are just some things that you are thinking that are holding you back from your full potential and where you need to be. So here's the final charge. Here's the final charge. Be intentional about your thoughts. Be intentional about your thoughts. And again, remember, you don't have to agree with every feeling that you have, right? You don't have to agree or come into alignment with every thought. Remember, the challenge from my daughter was not that I didn't need to be healthier. It was the way that I was thinking, which led to me saying something that could fracture who my real being is. I'm supposed to be healthy. I'm supposed to eat right. I'm supposed to take care of myself. So I have to be intentional about thoughts about who I am. So be intentional about your thoughts and let people challenge you to think better. This becomes very key because sometimes we take the challenge as a critique or criticism when really people care enough about us to see that we're struggling in our thoughts and we could be elevated in a way that we've never thought we could be before. So they become the challenge or the encourager or the one who empowers us to be intentional about your thoughts. Don't think like that. Don't speak like that is the challenge. So be intentional, but be disciplined in your mindset. Be disciplined in your mindset. Okay. And then lastly, be committed to becoming the person your purpose requires. This is so good for me. I want to be committed to becoming the person that my purpose requires. And sometimes those thoughts of past trauma, those thoughts of past hurts, those thoughts of of the weight of that we carry every single day gets in the way of us becoming the person that our purpose requires because we never ever take off the weight or never ever take time to clear our minds or never take time to sit and say, you know what, I'm doing the best that I can. Let's not focus on what we're not doing. How about we celebrate and walk in a grace that allows us to be happy about our small victories because some of us are just doing the best that we can. And so as a man thinks, so is he. And so this presentation today is important for me because it is a challenge that I've put on myself this year to think in a way that rooted that puts my mindset that grounds me, as I should say, in a place where I can give myself grace, but thinking differently so that I can have different outcomes. The person I was last year is not the person I want to be this year. So I'm thinking about growth. I'm being intentional about thinking about how I can be a better individual for my family, for my community. I'm thinking intentionally about how my faith and my connection with the community can work. I want to be intentional about it, and I want to be disciplined in the new thoughts that come to my life. I can accomplish this. I am going to accomplish this. And so I'm going to be disciplined to say anything else that distracts me from that, I have to block out so that I can continue to walk in my purpose. Your life is moving in the direction of your strongest thoughts. Let me say that one more time and then I'll be done. Your life is moving in the direction of your strongest thoughts. Thank you, peace and blessings, and I appreciate you all having me. And I believe it's Q&A time.
It is. That was there was so many powerful messages built into the what I call our short time together. I feel like if we spent more time together, I'd walk away a completely new person.
Thank
Thank you so much for that. There's been a couple comments and questions in the chat. I'm going to start with a comment. A gentleman shares thoughts become words, words become action, action becomes habits. So watch what you think. That completely aligns with everything, but especially your last message that you were saying.
you. Yes, absolutely. Amen. Yep.
A question that we got is do you have any recommendations or tips to help stop the negative thoughts or what to do when you have a negative thought? Do you have any tips on like how to
Yeah.
start to rewire your brain?
Yeah, I think so I it's interesting because I don't want to sound like this is not an answer, but negative thoughts in our life are a part of our life, right? We're going to go through seasons and periods of times when we're going to question ourselves or our thoughts will be in conflict where our truth lies, right? Where our truth is resting. And so when that happens though, I think that some of the things that we talked about in here become so important because if we understand that thoughts become decisions and decisions become behaviors and then that becomes the outcome, then when those thoughts come into place, here's how you challenge your thoughts. Remember, we talked about truth versus distortion, right? And so what we have to do is learn how to separate the truth from distortion. And then we also have to understand that not every thought deserves our agreement, right? It's okay to think it. It's just a natural part of life. But my faith and the things that I have in my empowerment, my purpose, my destiny, the truth about my life, it outweighs the lie that is in my brain because I'm going to rewire my thinking now because not every thought deserves my agreement. The minute I feel like I start to tell myself I can't do it, you have to rewire yourself to tell yourself that you can do it because nine times
Yep.
out of 10 you've done it before.
I like that. So pausing and saying, hey, thought, that's not true. Hey, self, hey, whether you're talking to yourself or just the thought in your head and you don't want to attach to it, is to
Yeah.
challenge it right back.
Yes. Yep.
Lots of comments coming through. Thank you, Minister Kyle. Much appreciated. I could use this kind of afternoon pep talk daily or weekly, and then is giving us a Cutler a hint that we should probably do this more often. I like that, Anthony. How about pouring back into yourself? You mentioned that you can't pour from an unhealthy mind. Do you have any thoughts on how you self-care or recharge yourself so you can be fully present in moments?
Yeah. One is intentionality, being intentional about it, making it a priority, finding the space where you can just kind of be at peace with yourself and gather your thoughts. Um, I liken it to my a friend of mine would call me and say, "Listen, my wife is getting on my nerves because every time I go home, I sit in the driveway for a minute, and she thinks something is wrong, but I'm trying to gather myself." And so I said, "Well, just explain that to her, right? Just explain that to her because you're being intentional about making sure that your mind is clear and right so that you can treat people around you with the love and respect that they need. Oftentimes, when we talk about best practices of how to keep a healthy mind and cultivate a healthy mind, it all comes down to being intentional because we all have different outlets of how we, gather ourselves when it comes to our thoughts or when it comes to peace. So what I would say is be intentional, number one. Number two is um, don't allow your thoughts to be so accessible.
Mm.
We have the tendency to always share what we're thinking, and then we allow people to talk us out of what we're thinking, right? You have to live in your moment and you have to feel what you feel in order for you to be elevated beyond it, right? Sometimes you have to live in that moment. And let's talk about if you're dealing with grief, right? You'll be hurt, you're sad, and you start to think things like, man, how's life going to, how's this void going to be filled? We could go down the list, but what you have to do is not give people so much access because they'll say things to you like, oh, it's been a long while. You should be able to get over that by now. And now you're in your mind, you're beating yourself up because you think that you're not mature enough to get past something that you're supposed to live in. You are entitled to live in those thoughts for a moment, a season, or whatever that may be. But if those thoughts are harmful to your life, then you have to be intentional about spending time fixing it. But don't let too many people have access to your thoughts all the time. We have a tendency to talk too much and not think too much.
Very true. Listening is a good skill to learn, to lean into, whether you're listening to yourself or others.
Yep.
Question in the chat: where is your church located?
So City of God is located in the Collinwood community. It is 742 East 152nd Street. We have been in existence in the neighborhood now for 9 years. This is our ninth year. You can go to our website and check us out at cogministry.com. Again, that's cogministry.com. Thank you for asking.
All right. Lots of gratitude in the chat as well. Very confirmational. I also see that the webinar was both motivational and inspirational. Many thanks throughout. I think everyone enjoyed our time together. I'm going to check again to see if I missed any. Doesn't look like there are any. Okay. Thank you so much, Pastor Early. This was fantastic. This session will go on our YouTube channel, and clips of it you can also find on our social media channels. I'm going to turn it over to Brady to talk a little bit about Cutler Center for Men, and then we'll wrap our time together.
Great.
Thank you, Jenny, and hello, everyone. Again, my name is Brady Payne, Program Coordinator here at Cutler Center for Men. At the Cutler Center, we make staying healthy simple, welcoming, and stress-free. We provide a full wraparound support to help men redefine what well-being looks like today through thoughtful, personalized touch points and concierge-level care at no extra cost. Enrollment is completely free for men over 18, and you don't have to be a University Hospital's patient to join. Just scan the QR code to visit our website, learn more, and sign up. When you become a member, you get direct access to the Joe team, your personal go-to guides. They're here to help you find providers, schedule appointments, and navigate healthcare without confusion or stress. We also connect you to community resources, trusted experts, and simple, easy to understand health education. And throughout the year, we host events such as these that brings guys together socially with connections, health screenings, and interactive experiences that support long-term health and well-being. But most importantly, UH Cutler Center for Men is a place where you belong. It's a supportive community where you feel respected, understood, and never navigating life alone. Pretty much think of us as your wellness wingman. Thank you so much for joining us today, everyone. To stay connected, follow us at UH Cutler Center for updates, upcoming events, and quick health insights. And don't forget, mark your calendars for the next check-in on every third Thursday of the month. Each session brings something new, so don't miss out. We look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.
Thanks, Brady. On the screen is a teaser for what's coming next month on May 21st. We'll have Dr. Randy Vince, who is the director of our community impact for UH Cutler Center for Men and also a urological oncologist here at University Hospitals. A lot of you may have met him. He's a pretty great guy. And so he will be joining us to talk about prostate cancer. talking about when you should worry, what to watch for, when you should get your PSA testing or screening done, and share what your real options are. Again, that's May 21st. This time, 12 o'clock noon. You can scan the QR code. And as Brady shared, you can also find us on social media and get access to this information and sign up for more. Thank you for being Cutler Center for Men members. If you already are, if you're not, reach out to any one of us on the team. We would love to have you join us in Cutler Center for Men. Again, thank you so much, Pastor Earley. It's really been, as people were saying in the chat, motivational, inspirational, and I'm walking away although I'm not a man, I am walking away becoming a stronger person. So thank you so much.
Thank you again.
Thank you. Everybody have a good rest of your day.